According to renowned environmental think tanks, Africa is the least contributor to global greenhouse gas emissions with less than 4% of total global emissions, and yet the most adversely impacted region. As world leaders met at this year's COP27 Summit in Egypt, the need for enhanced climate finance to tackle the worrying levels of emissions dominated talks, which have since come to an end. Campaigners have called for more adaptation on action to support the unbalanced climate impacts on developing countries who are bearing the brunt of the raging environmental crisis. Diamond Media has been following talks that emphasize rising cost of food, fuel, rising debt and inflation, which are hitting developing countries whose economies are gasping to rise above debt. However, scientists argue carbon emissions from economic giants such as China, the USA, Russia, among many others, are backsliding to the commitment they made of contributing $100 billion per year towards climate finance to mitigate the impact of climate change. UN Secretary General had a plea.
The blame game is a recipe for mutually assured destruction. I'm here to appeal to all parties to rise to this moment and to the greatest challenge that humanity is facing.
Stakeholders lament declaration of expressing support for a global goal to limit warming to 1.5 degrees Celsius by 2030 as per Paris Agreement, phase out coal and speed up climate finance is not being honored. Scientists are warning failure to abide by past agreements is drawing the planet to an age of irreversible consequences. Hence, they say time is running short to act collectively. Among the resolutions of world leaders was enhanced climate finance by developed countries towards adaptation and mitigation actions, addressing climate-induced loss and damage as a key part of multilateral cooperative climate action and supporting Africa's just transitions and sustainable development. During the start of COP27 last week, President Hakainde Hichilema, who is the lead negotiator in Africa, called for commitment toward mitigation and adaptation activities in developing countries.
We call on all our esteemed partners to fulfill their pledge of $100 billion per year of funding for us all to meet our intended goals.
In Zambia, the country has in recent times experienced the harsh reality of climate change, and the start of this year's rain season has devastated some infrastructure in places like Chipangali district of Eastern Province, where a thunderstorm ripped off a roof at Mnukwa Youth Training Institute, leaving 315 learners stranded.
Of course, the marathon I think mzao wanakuja. Marathon ngazafunga replacement. Zota pesa kote about 30 ndiye mene choko yone kote liko bwino.
In the rural areas of the same region, some houses were also not spared.
Niepe mpola sulikulene kuti aba bamene bayangana zokugwa mwazizizi bagwepo monga mmene mwabwerera inu baku Diamond TV.
Developing countries such as Zambia, Mozambique, Malawi, and Zimbabwe have been hit hard by a tropical storm named early this year Cyclone Anna, which caused widespread damage and death of both human and livestock. Climate campaigners predict that if governments fail to agree to fund interventions, the planet will have an estimated 2 million climate refugees by the year 2050. Samo Sylvester Kwawe, Diamond News, Eastern Province.